Let's get ready for some Sunday football.
This is the worst.
Mota Zita Banakasi, welcome into the worst fantasy show. I am your host with the least, Jack Lucenay, over here living in a Dare commercial. But let's get right into the Sunday questions. So we already got a question in the chat, which is awesome. If you guys have any questions to drop in the chat, feel free. We'll prioritize those, but otherwise, I'll be hitting some questions as always in the Fantasy Sports Advice Network. So make sure you guys go check them out. It's like a social media site that just aggregates everything you need for fantasy football. They got a couple other fantasy sports going on too. So it's pretty cool stuff. It's fantasysportsadvice.network. It's my boy Tyler that runs the site. So go give them a follow and check them out.
Riddle me this, Batman.
So right away, like I said, we already got a question in the comments. Shout out to you, Dylan Fink. Thank you so much for stopping by this early in the morning. Early bird doth get the worm, so you will be our first question of the day. What's up? Full PPR, different leagues, start 2 flex. Rashad Bateman, Roma Dunes, Khalil Shakir, Olave. That's an easy one for me. I'm going with Olave. He's been full practice. I know it's Rattler at quarterback, but I'm still going with the guy that is presumably the number one wide receiver on his team. So I'm going with Chris Olave for a floor play. I'm going with Rashad Bateman. He's been quietly efficient. It wasn't just the big game last week where he had like 1 for 120 or 4 for 120 and a tutty. If you actually look the weeks prior, he's been pretty consistent of 4 for 70, 4 for 80. So I think I would play Bateman and Olave here. Shakir, I think Shakir's the only one that scares me if I could be wrong, but I just feel like Olave is a better floor play than Shakir, and I want the ceiling potentially of Bateman because I actually think it's a bad matchup also for Derrick Henry against the Cleveland Browns, and that could turn into a little bit of a shootout with Jameis Winston starting today at quarterback is what I would be hoping for, and Bateman very much being the second wide receiver again will get less attention from that vaunted Cleveland defense. I like the matchup for Bateman. The other question here was start 1, flex 1 tight end, Javonte Williams or Bateman. In that scenario, I'm going to go with Javonte Williams just because it's such a safe play. It feels like any running back against the Carolina Panthers has smashed this year, except for I think Zamir White. So yeah, you can definitely play. I would, even though Bateman, I like the play. I just think Javonte is a safer floor. And Kmet and Ertz, I'm definitely going Kmet. Again, this is a situation of Javonte will be my floor play and Cole Kmet will be my ceiling play because, Ertz is not getting more than 5 points. And then he had another question, did Dylan Fink. Thank you again for dropping questions. And again, guys, drop questions. I'll answer some questions from the Fantasy Football Advice Network, but otherwise, if you guys drop some questions in the comments, I'll prioritize those. Start 1 quarterback, 2 running back, 1 wide receiver, 1 flex. So between Tua and Daniels, Daniels, it seems like now he is going to play, which I think is kind of crazy given the rib situation. It seems to me that is probably a pain tolerance issue. I'm more comfortable with Tua. I think just the matchup is at home against Arizona. It's a good matchup. Tua, I know the history with the concussion stuff is scary. It feels like both of these guys could get knocked out with 1 play. But I think Tua survives the game. I think he's going to have a good game. Feels like he has a safer floor. It's a tougher matchup, I actually think, too, for Daniels against the Bears defense. So I'm going to go with Tua with a slight edge. Kirk Jacobs. I'm not exactly sure which Kirk that is. If that's Christian Kirk, then and Josh Jacobs in the flex, like I'm going Josh Jacobs. Oh, that was part of the quarterback questions was Kirk Cousins. I get it. Tua, Daniels, or Kirk. No, I still think I would go with Tua there. Kirk is a good play, but I go with Tua. Just again, very like if I have Tua at 12, I have Kirk at probably like 13, 14, and then Daniels just scares me with the injury issue. Josh Jacobs, Dobbins, K9. So I'm going with Josh Jacobs. I love the matchup against the Jaguars, and I'm going with K. Now you can't sit Kenneth Walker, and it does seem like he's going to play. He's always like he's got these crazy weeks of like he's questionable the whole week, hardly practicing. Even popped up with an illness randomly this week to the point that I thought Charbonnet was going to get a start again, but no, it seems like he's good to go. Bills defense hasn't been that good this year, so I would play Walker and Jacobs there, and then one wide receiver and a flex. I don't want to start DeAndre Hopkins this week. I'm going to start Garrett Wilson, and my flex is going to be. I mean, since Daniels is playing, I think that's kind of how I'll split it. Is I'll flex Terry McLaurin, who's been pretty good. And Mariota is a competent quarterback, at least that if he comes in, it's not like Terry McLaurin's value is completely dead. Even though it is again a tougher matchup, I do like Romeo Dobbs. That's the other one that's really standing out to me. But I think ultimately I'm going with Garrett Wilson and Terry McLaurin by just a little bit. Okay, let's get into some of these questions in the forum group chat. Oh, excuse me. Looking like T. Higgins is out. Should I go with Khalil Shakir, Roma Dunes, or Andre Yoshivas instead? See, in that situation, I'm going to go with Khalil Shakir as just a floor play, especially if this is a PPR league. The only way I'm playing Yoshivas above those guys is if somehow this is standard, because then I'm just praying for a touchdown. But if this is PPR or even half PPR, I would go with Shakir over Adunes or Andre Yoshivas. Oh, here's kind of a tough one. Joe Mixon, James Cook, or Ramondre Stevenson start one in full PPR. So the easiest thing to do is eliminate the outlier. Obviously, Ramondre Stevenson is not, even if I'm wrong, that's a case of process over results. I'll take that L. I'll be wrong about Ramondre. I should have started Ramondre Stevenson over James Cook and Joe Mixon. Fuck off. No. So it's between Mixon and Cook, and Mixon has just been a monster. And the matchup is great against Indianapolis. I would definitely play Joe Mixon here. So, yeah, it's Mixon for me above James Cook and Ramondre. Kelsey or McBride for tight end today? Spicy take. I'm going with Kelsey. I'm going with the idea that the Chiefs are going to want to beat up on the Raiders a little bit. So I think I'm going to actually go with Travis Kelsey there. I have a couple best ball shares too, so I'll eat that with you. All right. Saucy Boa, what's up? Good morning, Dylan. I have a flex option. Should I put DJ Moore, Brian Thomas Jr., or Marvin Harrison Jr.? Oof. Yeah, that's a dilemma for sure. Oh, man. My gut instinct says DJ Moore. But Brian Thomas Jr. has been a wonder kid. So the reason my gut instinct says DJ Moore is because even though the Commanders' defense has been tough, especially as of late, we have seen they can also be taken advantage of. When I look at these three guys, the two to me right now that stand out as being able to have a true explosive game, even though technically all three of them should be, I think again, we're a process by elimination. Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to be out for me. I don't know what it is with him and Kyler Murray, I'm not feeling the vibes. I think until I see a little bit of consistency from Marvin Harrison Jr., I will bench him in situations like this where I have really excellent options ahead of him. Like if this is your flex, like obviously you have really good wide receivers. So I would start DJ Moore. The one thing is, and I have some shares of in redraft, I have Brian Thomas Jr. everywhere. And I'm not fortunate enough to have a situation like this where I could bench him. In fact, I have DJ Moore and Brian Thomas Jr. in many of my lineups today. So if this doesn't work out for you, trust me, I'm going to eat it twice. My final answer, though, is going to be DJ Moore based purely on the matchup, because I do think that the Bears are going to show up against the Manders in the rookie versus rookie battle, especially if Jaden Daniels is playing. Gives me a little bit more hopium that the Commanders will be able to kind of push it to a higher scoring game. So I like DJ Moore to have an explosive game here. I think Brian Thomas Jr. is still going to have a good game, but the Green Bay Packers defense is underrated. They are a pretty solid unit. They are top 15, and they have good corners and just good defensive backs and scheme in general. So I don't know that Brian Thomas Jr. is going to have like one of these huge 6 for 130 and a tutty games. Like I don't know that he gets that 50-yard bomb. They're going to be looking for that, are the Green Bay Packers defense. So again, it's close, but for me between DJ and BTJ, but I'm going with DJ. Final answer. And then in your running back spot, James Conner or Javonte Williams. I like James Conner a lot, but I think the matchup again, Javonte Williams against the Panthers defense, you can't ignore it. I do think the Cardinals are going to be down too, because again, they have the matchup against the Dolphins. If the Dolphins get up fast with Tyreek and Waddle and A-Shane, and all of a sudden you see the Cardinals are trailing and having to kind of sling the ball around, we might see a little less of James Conner. And if he doesn't fall in the end zone, that could be, a bad fantasy outing today. So I feel like Javonte Williams is actually a safer floor play today. Aiden, what's going on? Good morning. Have some tricky flex decisions. 2 flex. Choose 2. Olave, Romeo Doubs, Tank Bigsby, Ramondre Stevenson, Cortland Sutton, Jacoby Myers. So this is not that tricky. Again, always process by elimination. Let's get rid of the guys we know we're not starting. We're not starting Jacoby Myers. He's been dealing with an injury. The quarterback play has been shoddy. The matchup against the Chiefs defense is horrendous. He's out for sure. Ramondre Stevenson, bad matchup against the Jets, been banged up. Can't trust him. He's out. Cortland Sutton. I love Cortland Sutton, but he's just been so inconsistent because Bo Nix has been so inconsistent. Even though the matchup is great, they're probably just going to lean on the run and the defense. For me, he's out. So it's tricky because you're deciding, I think, between Olave, Romeo Doubs, and Tank Bigsby. If it's full PPR, even if it's full PPR, I don't think Travis Etienne is in, is he? I think if Etienne is out, it's an easy start for Bigsby. If Etienne is playing, I think it's an easy play for the wide receivers if you're in any kind of PPR. All right. Yeah, no, he's not going to play. This is again, I'm going to go on a small rant here. Boom, set this aside, okay? I am over this crap with the injury designations in the NFL. Travis Etienne right now is listed as questionable. Let's see how questionable he is. I just got to scroll down. Travis Etienne Jr. hamstring considered long shot to play Sunday. That means he's not fucking playing. I'm sick of these NFL coaches messing with these injury designations like it gives them any kind of sort of advantage. Like the defensive coordinator on the other team is like, oh no, Travis Etienne. Like, I'm so absolutely sick of this. Just tell me the guy is going to be out because he's clearly going to be out, and make him out so that I can also put him on IR and add someone off waivers. So he's out. He's going to be out. I'm going to take Tank Bigsby, and oh man, you know what? With the quarterback situation, I'm actually going to go with Romeo Doubs. I think he's just been the most consistent Packers wide receiver, and he's got Jordan Love. It's a great matchup against the Jaguars. Yeah, I'm going Romeo Doubs and Tank Bigsby. I do think Olave is going to have a decent game, and I threw him in a couple best ball lineups, but I just really like Romeo Doubs, who I also have in a lot of lineups. I have tons of Jordan Love this week. So, yeah, that's kind of how I'm looking at it. Yeah, that's how I usually roll. And Etienne is out. Yeah, I'm like, we all know that he's going to be out, but again, he's listed questionable, so I had to go just double check it. These trifling ass NFL teams, and yeah, process of elimination. That's just a really easy way of looking at your lineups in general. Doesn't matter what league you're in, of prioritizing, like, well, obviously I'm starting XYZ over XY. Like, if you have a handful of like 5 to 6 people, you can usually look right away and be like, okay, well, this guy's out for whatever reasons. And then if you can narrow it down to 3 or 4, you might not feel the greatest. And if you get to a true 50-50 decision, here is my stupid trick that always works. And it doesn't always work in terms of results. I just mean it works in terms of process. So you flip a coin. And I've said this before. So again, and this works in life too. Just a true 50-50 decision. Assign whatever to the coin, right? So like in this situation, let's just say you were really struggling between Olave and Dobbs. Put Olave as heads, Dobbs as tails. You flip a coin, and it doesn't matter what side it lands on, right? When the coin is in the air, in your heart of hearts, what were you hoping the coin landed on? That's the answer, right? So if you have a true 50-50 decision, flip that coin, and when that coin is in the air, were you hoping it landed on Olave or were you hoping it landed on Dobbs? And whichever answer that is, that's the guy you play. Even in spite of what I'm saying, like if you're like, I get the matchup stuff, but Olave is just so good, I do think he's so much better, than there's arguments to be made for the other side. I believe that Dobbs outperforms, but again, if you believe in your heart of hearts that it's Olave, like that's the play. Because the worst thing that can happen is you're like, oh, I listened to XYZ fantasy show and analysts gave really good advice, and I went with the matchup, but I really thought my guy was going to do it, and my guy did it on the bench, and I would have won. That's the worst fucking feeling. So yeah, like I said, that's kind of where I'm at. If you have a feeling like that, not for Cortland Sutton though. Not that one. That's a bad feeling. Put that feeling deep down inside. Shove that down like an Irish man at church. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, glad you traded Chase Brown for Tank Bigsby. That's a nice trade. Yeah, Etienne. Yes, this is what I'm saying. This crap with the questionable stuff. Next year, I kind of got off track. Next year, 5 IR spots. Any injury designation or tag can go in there. Questionable, NA, out, fucking thinking about considering practicing, possibly extending to potentially playing. Like, I'm sick of this shit. The NFL be trifling. All right. Let's grab a couple more questions. Ooh, half PPR. Trade DeAndre Hopkins for Tank Bigsby. That's a scary one. All right, let's look at, he gave us some context too. Running backs on his team, Josh Jacobs, Jordan Mason, and then kind of a drop-off. Jerome Ford, Isaac Guerrero, Kamani Vidal, Jalen Wright. All right. And then wide receivers, Tyreek Hill, A.J. Brown, Puka Nacua, Jamison Williams, DeAndre Hopkins, Keon Coleman. That's a tough one. My gut instinct says you should be able to have more. You should be able to get a little bit more for DeAndre Hopkins right now. I think people are really hot and bothered about this DeAndre Hopkins to the Chiefs news. And the fact that you have those 3 wide receivers and Puka if Puka had not just come back, I would have been like, I think you keep DeAndre here because you can ride Jacobs and San Francisco running back, whether it's Mason or Garendo. Oh. And as soon as if ETN comes back, he's not going to lose his role completely. So it really just kind of tanks your tank. I think I still would hang on to DeAndre Hopkins here and maybe try to package him with, like, if I could package DeAndre Hopkins and Jordan Mason, for example, and go get an actual starting running back, like a legit one. Who's someone that maybe not? I'm trying to think because I'm like, it's funny because I would say Josh Jacobs, but you have him on your team already. My gut instinct is like you're not going to be able to get a Joe Mixon or someone who's really overperforming. Kyron Williams, though, I don't know why people are still lukewarm on a guy who has been the most consistent running back in fantasy football, has a touchdown in literally every single game. You could maybe package Jordan Mason and DeAndre Hopkins and pull Kyron away from that manager, depending. That's a possibility. Looking who else. Yeah, Kenneth Walker maybe could be a potential target in that situation. James Cook had a really hot start, and I still think he's got a lot of big games ahead of him. So he's someone I think you could get right now. And kind of on the lower end, maybe like a Tony Pollard. Jonathan Taylor just came back. Who would be interesting actually is Rachaad White. You think about the Bucks just lost all their wide receivers. Mike Evans likely for like a month and Godwin for the year. They're going to lean on the running backs again, and everyone presumed Rachaad White was dead. And then last week, all he did was come back and have 6 for 71 and 2 touchdowns through the air, receiving. Also 10 for 40 on the ground. And that was enough to be RB2 on the week. I took some Rachaad White shares in best ball this week because I figured not a lot of people were going to be doing that. So it's a differentiator for me, but I also think as gross as it is, he's what I call a Robitussin player. Of it tastes awful, but it works. And again, when all the wide receivers were there and all the options were there, he was getting phased out a little bit, also because he was dealing with his own injuries. But I think now they're going to need him more than ever. So I think you could actually even target Rachaad White above. I'm just talking again. These are guys that are, in my view, as much as I like Tank Bigsby, I view every name I just said above Tank Bigsby as like actual NFL starting running backs. And I think if you were to pair Jordan Mason and DeAndre Hopkins together, you could potentially go get one of those like true starting running backs. And Aiden laughed when I said 5 IR, but I'm not messing around with that. Look at how many injuries there have been this year. And again, it's not just the injuries. I made a whole post on Twitter. It's like, look at how many times we've had guys that were questionable that were clearly out. Let me see if I can pull it up real fast on Twitter because some of these were actually ridiculous and really kind of pissed me off. Again, because it's like they're just lying. They're just straight lying. Oh, yeah, here it is right here. Okay, this was I'm petitioning next year for IR to include more spots and all designations allowed. So, just as an example this week, DK Metcalf has been questionable all week. I think he still is on Sleeper after being early declared as not practicing Wednesday or Thursday and considered a long shot to play. Yeah, because he's not fucking playing. Andy Dalton is already tagged out. Like, he's not playing. He's benched for Bryce Young. Go look on Sleeper. He's still tagged as doubtful right now. You can't put him on IR. It's fucking stupid. Devontae Adams Devontae Adams was out for weeks, magically hurt. He was hurt and then magically heals as soon as he gets to the Jets. Cooper Kupp, they had him questionable all week last week. I'm not talking about the Thursday game that he just played. I'm talking about the week before when they knew he wasn't going to play that fucking game, because why would you play him in that Sunday game and then again 4 nights later on Thursday Night Football? They knew they weren't going to fucking play him, and yet he was questionable the entire week. I'm so sick of this shit. So yeah, 5 IR spots, and you can put questionable and any other injury designation on it. That's my petition for next year. And Kyron Williams, the GOAT. Yeah. I mean, people were afraid of Kyron Williams this year. I said, look, I'm still drafting Kyron Williams. I might take some Blake Corum insurance shares late, but I'm drafting Kyron Williams. The Rams running back, when they lean on him, that's money. CD, Drake London, T. Higgins, DJ Moore, Brian Thomas Jr., Marvin Harrison Jr. are my wide receivers. That's why I asked who to start yet. Too much talent is always a good problem to have, though, Saucy Boa. So shout out to you for having those wide receivers. And I always hate people who are like 8-man league. It's like, no, probably like 10, maybe 12, lots of trades. It happens all the time. I have a 16-team dynasty league that every time I show it to people, they're like, they're like, that's impossible. It's bullshit. And it's just because I traded my ass off. I have no draft picks for even this coming year in 2025. No draft picks. I have draft picks in 2026 in that league. So anything's possible. Let me pull up the questions here again. Shout out to anybody watching. If you guys drop questions in the comments, I will prioritize them. But otherwise, we'll hit a couple more from Fantasy Football Advice Network. We'll get a couple more from the comments, and then we'll shoot on out of here. Pick 2 to start. James Cook, Amari Cooper, or Tank Bigsby. Ooh, that's a tough one. I have a lot of Amari Cooper this week in best ball. I also have a lot of Josh Allen. I really like that matchup against Seattle. But I think I'm going double running back here. I think I'm taking James Cook and Tank Bigsby. As much as I like Amari Cooper, it's like I feel like Amari Cooper could have a really good game and get like 5 for 70 and a tutty, whereas like they're gonna lean on Tank Bigsby. And especially ETN is out. Like he might be listed questionable on sleeper or some bullshit. He's out. Trust me, he's out. So James Cook and Amari Cooper. James Cook and Tank Bigsby, I meant to say. Ooh, touchdowns only week 8. Keenan Allen or Tyler Lockett. Oh, that's a tough one. As much as I like Keenan Allen, I actually think that's a good play this week against the Manders. I have been smashing Lockett and JSN into as many best ball lineups as I can. I'd say I'm probably 50% exposed right now across all my best ball this week on Lockett and JSN because I'm expecting DK Metcalf to miss. So for me, I would go Tyler Lockett there. Jason Ortiz, welcome. Start 1. Pittman, Pollard, Jalen McMillan. Yeah, I'm starting Tony Pollard. He's the only thing the Titans got going for them, and he's still been pretty decent. The one game that he had a bad game, he did take a really hard shot and kind of went through concussion protocol, but didn't have to go out of the game. So he toughed it out, which I actually think is a good sign for him. So I like Tony Pollard here. It would be Pittman if they had Flacco in, but they don't. It's going to be Anthony Richardson. I can't trust that guy to throw the ball. So I'm going with Tony Pollard. And then start 2, Sutton, Pittman, McMillan, or Wandale. Oh, man. Yeah, I got to see it from McMillan before I just throw him in my lineup. That would be pretty ballsy to throw him in just sight unseen. I know it's like a decent matchup against the Falcons, and, Baker's going to have to throw to someone. I think that someone ends up being Otton 1, Rashad White 2, running back like Bucky Irving 3. I don't think I can trust McMillan right off the bat. If he has a good game here, then, great. And you just have that great asset. I don't know that I trust throwing it in my lineup right away. I think Wandale is the guaranteed floor play here because he just gets so many targets, and I like Sutton in the matchup against the Panthers only because, again, Anthony Richardson, I just can't trust what he's going to do from a quarterback perspective of throwing the fucking football, which is like the main job of a quarterback. It's like, look, that's great that you think you're Superman and you're going to run over every NFL linebacker. You're going to have a 5-year career, if that. And, at the rate that he has not developed as a passer, like NFL offenses these days don't have the patience usually to develop a guy for 3 years unless it's on the bench. Like for him to be a starting quarterback right now, he has to ascend way past what he's been doing from a performance level. Like you can't be throwing fucking 9 for like completing 9 passes a game. It's ridiculous. So final answer again, Sutton and Wandale there. George C, what's up? Is the Bears defense worth starting even with Daniels potentially starting for the Commanders? That's a good question. I would say no. The only reason is because there's just so many good pivots, I think, that you can play. So I'm just going to go pull it up here. Defense. I need to go to available. Sorry. I'm projected. Let's see what's up. All right. I like the Dolphins, actually. Even though technically the Cardinals are a better offense on paper, clearly there's like vibe checks not going with Kyler Murray and MHJ right now, even though I like Trey McBride and James Conner. I think the Miami defense will be able to control them and maybe get some turnovers and potentially like a touchdown. Again, based on the idea that I think Miami could get up early. It's a home game. They've got Tua back, a lot of emotions. They should have I know Tyreek popped up kind of late, questionable with the foot. That shit seems to happen. I'm a Tyreek dynasty owner, so I don't know why he'll randomly do that and still play. You might have to temper expectations, but I think that's a good play for defense. And these are I'm switching off Bears defense because of Daniels. Manders too. Like I don't want to play the Manders defense, even though they've been lights out 3 of the last 4 weeks. Who else? Oh yeah, obviously if Denver Broncos are floating out there, the Detroit Lions. These are kind of go check. Like I had Detroit Lions floating in one of my leagues on defense, and I picked them up. I would start them. But yeah, if you have none of those like better options, Houston, duh. If Anthony Richardson's playing, you can start Houston Texans defense. That's another one. So if any of those guys, I know Jonathan Taylor's coming back. I'll trust Anthony Richardson to turn the ball over. So yeah, again, if you have like a really good option, I'm not stuck to the Bears, but if you don't have any better options, don't just try and get cute with it either. And, if Daniels does go out, Mariota's kind of a competent backup. So just saying. Hey, what's up, Juan? Who for my wide receiver 2 and flex? DJ Moore, Alexander Madison, Wan'Dale Robinson, Rashad Bateman, Jacoby Myers, Travis Etienne, Josh Downs, Kenneth Walker. All right, so process of elimination. Etienne is already out. Boom, he's out. Jacoby Myers, out. Boom. Dealing with injuries, bad quarterback, bad matchup, out. Wan'Dale Robinson, floor, out. Alexander Madison, Chiefs defense, out. Josh Downs, Anthony Richardson problem, out. Yeah, I like Rashad Bateman, but this is pretty easy for me. This is DJ Moore and Kenneth Walker. Kenneth Walker, I know he was dealing with an injury tag and he was dealing with an illness, but if he plays, he's in your lineup. And I like the matchup for DJ Moore here. Again, process over results. If you end up being wrong on this one, it's not like I don't want to live in a world where you should have known ahead of time to play Alexander Madison over DJ Moore or Kenneth Walker, for example. Like those are clearly your 2 best players out of this allotment. So start your studs, but also the matchup is good for Walker. He's healthy. The matchup is decent for Moore. He's healthy. Hopefully Caleb Williams balls out today. Yeah, I'm going with DJ Moore and Kenneth Walker there. This is a tough one. Marv or Tank Dell half PPR. Tank Dell straight goosed you last week. Marvin Harrison Jr., the potential is always there. I'm going with Tank Dell. I am. This is one where it feels a little bit like getting cute. And maybe, that's what bites me. But, man, I've said before, the whole thing with Kyler and Marvin Harrison Jr., and, if you look at historically all the best quarterback and wide receiver tandems throughout the NFL, chemistry and consistency plays such a large part of it. And I don't see that with Kyler and with MHJ. And it's one thing to say, like, oh, MHJ is the diva and he's a wide receiver and he's supposed to be this like prime guy. Bro, if your quarterback just doesn't give a shit, like, what are you supposed to do, right? Like, if Kyler isn't also going to be first in the building, last one out, like, Peyton Manning-esque almost, Tom Brady-esque in that level of preparation. And I think that's been the mantra and check on him kind of since he came into the league. We always make the jokes about, Call of Duty Black Ops 6 just came out. Like, we're about to lose Kyler for a month. Like, I do think there is a not necessarily level of dedication, but maybe a separation of, himself from the game that, again, it's like, I don't see him developing that that mindfulness that you see. Like, the whole reason they bring in Devontae Adams for Aaron Rodgers is because they have that unspoken, like, you have it with your best friend sometimes, of like, you can look at your best friend in the eyes and just like know what they're thinking without having to voice it out loud. When you get that connection at wide receiver, and again, it's like, almost becomes instinctual of trying to go to a guy. Yeah, that when it becomes second nature like that, Kyler and MHJ have the potential to be an all-time combo. I don't know that Kyler has the mental makeup to make that happen. And until I start to see a little bit of consistency, like I said, I mean, you're basically playing the odds of a spike week here, and I'm going to go with the one that I think is more likely in the matchup, and I think it's Tank Dell. I think Tank Dell could have an explosion week against Indianapolis here. Should I be worried for Kittle's foot? Should I pick up Komet, Hunter Henry, Zach Ertz, or Fant off of waivers just in case? Well, the problem with that is I don't think any of those actually will work for you. This is the problem when you have to rely on someone in the Sunday night game. So let's go see what your actual pivot would be. Oh no! Oh no! Oh no! The Monday night game is Giants Steelers. So this is like, if you're not gonna play Kittle, you would have to basically make the decision ahead of time to bench him for one of these guys. So next up, let's go see what Kittle's status is right now. I think he's been practicing, as far as I know. Yeah, no, George Kittle expected to play against Dallas. So, yeah, I'm going to trust that, and I'm going to play George Kittle. Even though I do really like Cole Kmet, and I've been playing him in a couple leagues, Kittle's just the best one out of all these guys. Like, I've streamed Cole Kmet and Hunter Henry, but again, that to me, there's streaming options. Kittle is, you drafted him to be a weekly set it and forget it. The matchup's good. They're going to need him. Ayuk obviously out for the season. CMC still not back. It's against Dallas in prime time. I'm going with Kittle. And then he also asked, which defense? Ravens, Texans, Bears, Commanders, Giants, Dolphins, Cardinals. That's a long list there. All right. The Ravens scare me because of Jameis Winston. Again, Jameis Winston can throw 3 interceptions, but he can also throw 350 and 3 touchdowns. I like the Texans a lot because of Anthony Richardson. Bears Commanders, I think those kind of wash out for me. I think Caleb Williams is going to have a good game. And if Jaden Daniels plays, I would hope that he also has a good game and that both defenses kind of take a little bit of a backseat in this one, but we'll see. The Giants, I'm not playing the Giants, that's for sure. If you could somehow get your hands on the Steelers playing the Giants on Monday, that would be great. They're going to sack the shit out of them. Yeah, I'm going to rank this as me personally. I would go Dolphins, Texans, Bears. That's how I have it. I really think the Dolphins are going to kind of run things up on the Cardinals and have some opportunities for turnovers on defense and maybe some special teams, touchdowns. I'm looking for a DST touchdown is what it is. And I think that's more likely from the Dolphins, though I really think the Texans are just as likely because of Anthony Richardson. So I'm torn between those two. Whichever one you like the most between the Dolphins and Texans, that's what I would do. Devon Achane or Devontae Adams. That's a tough one, but I'm going with Achane. Tua's back. Full PPR, doesn't matter. Achane catches the ball, and Tua's back. So I'm going with Achane. I do like Devontae Adams, and the matchup against the Patriots is good too. And he had 9 targets in his first game, and it's the old connection. I get all of those things, but I think Achane could have a very explosive week this week, and I have him in a lot of lineups. Yeah, going tank, baby. Fuck it. Yeah, that's right. Flex start, full PPR, Dell or Mooney. Oof. Man, Mooney was doing so good, and I really like the matchup against the Bucks. That's kind of a tough one. But continuing with the theme, I do think it's so hard to take a guy who goosed last week and throw him back in your lineup. If you need the ceiling, if the rest of your team is floor plays, or if you're like the 3rd to 5th ranked team and you're playing the 1st ranked team and their team is just a juggernaut scoring mad points every week, like I'm going with Tank Dell for a ceiling. And I think Mooney is the floor play. If you're on the other side, if you're the number 1 ranked team and you're just like, hey, I'm just filling my flex here, and otherwise the rest of my lineup's going to kick the shit out of this guy, that's a situation where I'm like, okay, well, now I just want the floor play of the 5 to 10 and in full PPR. I'll take Mooney in that very select situation. But I think most times I'm wanting that boom play from my flex, and especially in situations where I might be 2-4 or at this point 2-5, 3-4, whatever. Like, yeah, I think I would go with Tank Dell there. Ooh, this is BTJ or Pickens. Yeah, I'm going with George Pickens. George Pickens is just doing ludicrous shit with the football right now. Like he can juggle the football and still catch it. I think these are a very even play. So I'm just going with the matchup. That's kind of where I'm at. Like, I really think you could start either one of these guys and be right. And you could start either one of these guys and be wrong. But I think I go with Pickens slightly, only because, again, I don't think the Giants can stop him at all. And I do think the Packers have an underrated defense. And I think Brian Thomas Jr., this might be a 5 for 60 game. Like, he might not get in the end zone on the big 50-yard thing. If he does that, obviously it's going to feel bad if you benched him. And that's where it's like I could just as easily be wrong on this. But I really think like Pickens is going to smash New York on a primetime Monday Night Football game. And also Russ is going to get another start, and he can't run like Fields. So he's just going to he's going to throw the ball up for Pickens. We just saw it. And against a better defense. So, yeah, I'm going with Pickens by a little bit. I'm a Steelers fan, just to say, but I usually hate on the Steelers, and I have not been a huge fan of this offense this year, so I just will throw that in with a grain of salt also, just to out myself. So, like, maybe there's a bit of bias, but a little counter bias because I kind of hate on them right now. Start 2, Najee, Connor, Bigsby or Chubb, non-PPR. I'm going with Najee Harris. Najee's starting to pick things up. This is what I've been saying about Najee Harris. Of like, you got to hold on to him through the tough times, because he's one of the few running backs right now that is going to get workhorse touches. He's going to get 20 to 30 touches a game. Oh man. Yeah, I'm going with Najee. I'm going with Tank Bigsby. So Nick Chubb, the story has been fantastic, and I was really happy to see him back. I actually thought the Browns could have and should have won that game last week if they had prepared properly, if Jameis Winston had been the actual backup quarterback and not this bullshit with Dorian Thompson-Robinson, so they could protect Deshaun Watson's ego. Like, if all of that bullshit hadn't happened and they had just put Jameis in immediately, I think they win that game. So as much as I like Nick Chubb and everything I just said, he also ran the ball like 11 times for 20 yards. He's averaging like 2 yards a carry right now. Obviously working his way back from a devastating injury. Just being on the field is a fucking miracle right now. But I'm treating this situation like last year's Javonte Williams when he was working his way back from his devastating injury. I would start Chubb as an absolute floor play only right now until I see a full game allotment. Like, I got to see this guy get 20 touches and, maybe do it on a little bit more of a consistent basis. And I like James Conner, but I just think, again, that the Dolphins are going to run up the Cardinals a little bit with Tua back. And then he's just not going to be as involved in this game because they're going to be in comeback mode. So I'm going with Najee and I'm going with Tank Bigsby. Thomas says, thanks. No, thank you, Thomas, for stopping by. And thank you guys all for stopping by and dropping in some comments and questions. Always makes the show easier on a Sunday morning to hang out with you guys. Dynasty 39, Rashad Bateman or Michael Pittman. Cannot believe that I am saying Rashad Bateman. I cannot comprehend that those are the words escaping my lips, but it's Rashad Bateman. I mean, look, Michael Pittman is clearly the better wide receiver here. The problem is Anthony Richardson, like, me and Anthony Richardson are about as accurate of NFL quarterbacks. Like, I could go out there and complete 9 of 30. Like, Jesus. I probably couldn't, to be perfectly honest. But I'm like, bro, I'll throw screen passes. Like, I'll check it down. I ain't trying to run. So maybe I would. But no, this whole thing of he just can't play football right now on a quarterback NFL level. Again, and I think it's overrated, Josh Allen too. People kind of always are like, well, Josh Allen made that leap. Josh Allen is one of one. You know how many guys like Josh Allen have existed throughout the history of the NFL and have not made that leap? Just off the top of my head, like Brock Osweiler is one. Like, think of how many big athletic quarterbacks. Like, look at Will Levis and what's happening there right now. Look at Mason Rudolph. Look at how many of these dudes have flamed out in the history of the NFL. There has been hundreds, if not thousands, of big dopey white dudes who have just flamed the fuck out, especially at quarterback in the NFL. So again, like, if you're going to just play like that, like, Anthony Richardson is just a more athletic version of Will Levis right now. He makes boneheaded decisions. He can't read the field. He doesn't check it down. He doesn't take what the defense gives him. It's like this guy can only do two things. He can either run the football or chuck it 70 yards down the fucking field. And it's like, okay, that's great. That's like 10% of an NFL offense, legitimately. Like, and I think that's where it gets lost, is like, he just can't operate an NFL offense right now too. I doubt that he has full access and mastery of even the playbook, right? So it's like, I'm I bet that they're working with like a limited set of plays. And on those limited sets of plays, he is also limited in what he can even do. So yeah, I mean, until we see Joe Flacco, you can't start any Colts receiving options. So for me, I would start Jonathan Taylor and move on. But yeah, I would start Bateman over Pittman, which sucks. I'm playing Ferguson instead of Pittman too. Yeah, I would. I would absolutely flex Jake Ferguson, Fergalicious over Pittman right now because again, you just can't trust the Colts wide receiver, and it sucks because they've got a perfectly good quarterback on the bench that could dominate. Ugh, frustrating. All right, that's enough for me. We almost made it to an hour, but I'm going to cut out here. My voice is starting to crackle a little bit. I super appreciate you guys stopping by this early on a Sunday morning, hanging out a little bit. I'll be back probably tomorrow. No doubleheader. So, yeah, I think I should be back tomorrow for Hearts and Farts, the Studs and Duds. But until the next time, I'll catch all of you guys on the flip side.
He's running down the middle by the 50. He's at the 30. He's bare-chested and banging his chest. Now he runs the opposite way. He runs at the 50. He runs at the 40. The guy is drunk, but there he goes. The 20. They're chasing him. They're not going to get him. Waving his arms, bare-chested. Somebody stop that man. Here comes